Welcome to another episode of Jeff Smith's Garage. This time I thought we'd talk about stainless valves. We got some stuff here for a small block Chevy. Erson sent us some nice stainless valves, and I thought we'd clue you in on the technology. So let's talk about materials first. So in a production valve, they're just steel. Whereas the Ersons are an EV8 stainless. The problem with stock steel valves is as you tend to generate more heat from, let's say, higher compression, pushing the motor harder, stuff like that, drag racing or road racing application, what happens is as the temperature, EGTs go up, exhaust gas temperatures go up, the valve actually starts to lose strength. Whereas a stainless steel valve, it actually can handle it much better and it actually maintains its strength or actually gets stronger. So these are actually EV8 stainless, and then as far as the stems are concerned, these are hard chromed because you really can't harden stainless valves conveniently or easily. So they hard chrome these, and then the tips are actually stellite. So if you want to step up into a much more high performance valve, you get into high-end turbocharging, supercharging, you get into an in-canal, something like that, those things are ridiculously expensive. And really for competition engine applications, the same thing with titanium. Titanium is actually kind of soft, so you have to run some kind of a lash cap. So these valves are really the ideal choice for a street engine and even mild competition stuff because it can handle the temperature. Now let's get into some specifics on the Erson valves. They actually have two different series that we think are important for this information. And the first is the competition series, which is the 1000 series valve. And those are aimed more at high-end race engines, competition engines, things like that. Then the second series is aimed more at the street. They call it the race valve. It's a 2000 series valve. Now, many of the features are still the same, but the race valves or actually the competition valves tend to be about 10% lighter, which when you're running high RPM and pulling lots of G's on your valve train, that's pretty important. But for an average street motor, like something we're doing here with a small block Chevy, you know, a street motor, the race series with the 2000 series is actually probably the good choice. They're also a little bit less expensive. So many of the features are still the same. The big thing you want to look for is in terms of like locks, for example, these use a square lock instead of a half round lock like some other manufacturers use. And all you want to do is make sure that the locks that you buy for these valves will accommodate a square lock and also for the appropriate valve stem size. Because locks are determined by valve stem size. And like I said, all the other features are pretty much the same. You have the reduced stem point down here, which is worth up to about 10% flow increase, as opposed to a standard production valve that does not have this feature. So those two things are really the big ticket items for the big important items for this series. And then we'll move on to the next ones. So the majority of these Erson valves are aimed at small and big block Chevys, but they do offer some other varieties of stuff. The overall lengths are quite substantial. In terms of diameter, we go from 194 to 2350, those 2.35 inches. And then that's on the intake side. On the exhaust, it's 1.5, 1,500 to 1,850. So, but there are also some other features that you might want to be concerned with. One of the things they'll ask you is tip length. Well, the tip length is from the lock groove upwards. And the reason that's important is because in the late 80s, Chevy went from a standard rocker arm, which is this design, stamped rocker or a roller, either one. It's just got a flat tip on it here where it just runs across. But then later, and that's used in conjunction with a pushrod guide plate to center the rocker arm on the valve tip. In the late 80s, Chevrolet went to a guided rocker arm, which has these two little nubs on it, and it guides itself on the valve tip so that you don't need a pushrod guide plate. So, but with a guided rocker, you need a taller tip length so that it accommodates that height, because what you don't want the rocker to do is to touch the retainer and unload the lock. that would be bad. So tip length is kind of important, so it's something that you just have to pay attention to. So we've got valve diameters, we've got tip length, and we've got overall length. Overall length is important because if you want to go, let's say, 100 thousandths longer, then that gives you more length to not crash into the seal on, let's say, a 650 lift cam, something like that. So you got to pay attention to all those details, but when you do, it really works out well. So hopefully you've learned a little bit about Erson stainless valves in our little short video, and some application ideas and things like that. It's always important to know the details, that way you don't make a mistake. So if you like what we're doing here at Just Miss Garage, ring the bell, subscribe, and we'll keep cranking these out for you.